In the wild, vivid beauty is rarely an invitation. It is a warning, whispered on the wind and carved into the very bones of the earth. Consider a single mushroom rising from the forest floor, a relic from a fairy tale with colors so vibrant they seem to hum with life. Yet, a single bite contains enough neurotoxin to silence your heart before you even register the sweetness on your tongue. The earth itself is just such a garden, vast and deceptive. The only difference is that the traps here are not measured in inches, but on a geological scale. We are talking about oceans capable of crushing steel hulls like tin cans, mountains that reject the human need to breathe, and deserts that boil the blood in your veins. These are not vacation spots marked by cheerful postcards. These are impossible places, regions where the line between survival and oblivion is thinner than a strand of silk, where one misplaced step can rewrite your destiny in an instant. Welcome to the 30 most dangerously beautiful locations on our planet. Sanctuaries of awe that you should never, ever visit alone. Rising from the mist of the Normandy coast, Mont Saint-Michel appears like a stone mirage floating above the horizon, a dream conjured from the sea foam. For over 1,000 years, pilgrims have walked across this vast expanse of sand to reach the Abbey Gates, drawn by a holy light that seems to pierce the fog. It looks peaceful, almost ethereal, a castle in the clouds grounded by faith. But the bay is a master of deception, a killer disguised as a sanctuary. Patches of quicksand lie hidden beneath the surface, waiting for a misplaced step, invisible until it is too late. The mixture of fine clay and salt water acts like a liquid trap, a hungry mouth that swallows everything it touches. The more you fight, the deeper it pulls you in, dragging you down with a silent, suffocating grip. And while you struggle, the clock is ticking with terrifying precision. This bay holds one of the highest tidal ranges on the planet, a natural phenomenon of immense power. The ocean does not creep in slowly here. It rushes back with the speed of a galloping horse, just as Victor Hugo once described. In reality, the water level can reach nearly 15 meters or 49 feet. Transforming the landscape from a dry, walkable desert into a deep, churning sea in a matter of hours. To be stuck in the sand when the tide turns is to face a slow, cold inevitability, a drowning that comes faster than you can run. The beauty of the castle becomes the last thing you see before the water claims the land. A final image of grace before the darkness takes hold. If the danger in France lies in the mud, here in China, it hangs in the thin air, suspended over an abyss that defies sanity. The granite peaks of Shanxi province pierce the clouds at over 2,150 meters, roughly 7,000 feet above the mortal world. Clinging to the sheer vertical face is a path that challenges the very limits of human courage. This is the plank walk, a trail that is not really a trail at all. It is a shelf, a narrow ledge of existence. Rough wooden boards, gray with age and rot, are bolted directly into the stone, held by nothing but rusting iron and hope. There are no guardrails here, no safety nets to catch a fall, no second chances. There's only a cold iron chain to grip with sweating palms, and the terrifying expanse of nothingness beneath your boots. A drop so deep it seems to go on forever into the center of the earth. Legend says Taoist monks built this route while seeking immortality, believing that walking the edge of death would bring them closer to the gods. Yet for the modern traveler, it offers a direct, heart-pounding confrontation with mortality. The wood creaks under the weight of a single step, a sound that echoes in your soul. The mountain wind howls against the rock face, constantly threatening to peel intruders away from the wall and cast them into the void. A moment of dizziness, a shoe slipping on the damp grain, a sudden gust of wind, and a pilgrimage turns instantly into a free fall. It is a place where you must trust your balance more than your life, where every breath is a prayer and every step is a gamble with fate. Deep within the Santiago crater in Guatemala, the earth has torn itself open, revealing the fiery machinery beneath our feet. This is one of the rare locations on the planet where a persistent lava lake churns just meters below the rim, a boiling pot of molten rock that never sleeps. The glow paints the night sky in violentiades of crimson and orange, casting long dancing shadows that look like demons at play. "5 centuries ago, Spanish conquistadors stood on this edge and stared into the molten abyss, terrified by the sight of hell made real. They named it La Boca del Infierno, the mouth of hell, and planted a wooden cross at the summit, hoping to keep the devil trapped beneath the rock. But no symbol contained the geology here. No prayer can cool the fire. The magma boils at temperatures exceeding 1,000 degrees Celsius, or 1,800 degrees Fahrenheit, a heat so intense it warps the air itself. It is not just the heat that kills. The crater acts as a chimney for massive amounts of sulfur dioxide, a gas that is invisible and silent yet deadly. It burns the lungs, corrodes metal within minutes, and blinds the eyes. Standing here feels less like visiting a mountain and more like staring into the throat of a living beast. Feeling its hot breath on your skin, knowing that one slip could send you plunging into a lake of fire that would consume you instantly. It is a place of primal terror and mesmerizing beauty, where the earth reminds us that we are merely guests on a volatile planet. From the fire of the crater, the journey shifts to the violent currents of the border between the United States and Canada, where water becomes a weapon. Downstream from the majestic falls, the Niagara River makes a sudden sharp 90-degree turn, forcing the massive volume of water into a narrow gorge. The sheer power rushing into this confined space forces the river to spin in a massive counterclockwise vortex known as the Niagara Whirlpool. It looks like a deep teal-colored eye, calm and mysterious, but it functions like a centrifuge of destruction. The water here reaches speeds of 48 kilometers or 30 miles per hour, carving a pit nearly 38 meters or 125 feet deep, a grave for anything that enters. This is categorized as Class 6 rapids, a designation that essentially means unnavigable and suicidal, a place where nature says no to human intrusion. Logs that are sucked into this vortex have been known to stay trapped for weeks, ground down to splinters by the relentless force before they are finally released. To fall into this water is to be caught in a liquid grinder where the force of the current is absolute, where your body would be tossed like a ragdoll against the rocks until nothing remains. It is a reminder that even the most beautiful rivers can hide a killing machine beneath their surface. On the island of Oahu in Hawaii, a jagged ridge slices through the clouds like the spine of a prehistoric beast, a backbone of the earth exposed to the sky. Bolted directly onto this knife edge are 3,922 steps, a ladder to nowhere that climbs into the heavens. They call it the Stairway to Heaven, a name that belies its dangerous reality. Originally constructed by the Navy during World War II to access a secret radio transmitter, the path was never designed for tourism, never meant for civilian feet. Today, it stands as a rusting skeleton, a decaying monument to a forgotten war, clinging to the side of a mountain that once had gone. The route is illegal, officially closed to the public for decades, with signs warning of fines and arrest. Yet, the forbidden's allure continues to pull climbers into the mist, drawing them like moths to a flame. You are climbing a ladder that clings to a vertical face, where on either side the mountain drops away into a green abyss, a fall that would surely be fatal. The metal railings, corroded by years of salt air and rain, shake under your touch, unstable and treacherous. But the true threat comes from the Pacific trade winds, which can surge up the valley without warning, hitting the ridge with enough force to destabilize even the most sure-footed climber. It is a walk on a decaying tightrope suspended in a white void, where the ground vanishes and the sky feels uncomfortably close, where one strong gust could tear you from the rails and send you spinning into the jungle below. It is a place where the desire to touch the sky might cost you your life. From the tropical heights of the Pacific, the journey shifts to a silence so deep it freezes the blood, a cold so extreme it stops time itself. Deep in the Siberian tundra lies the village of Oymyakon, known as the Pole of Cold, the coldest inhabited place on Earth. Winter here is not a season. It is a permanent assault on biology, a war against life itself. Temperatures have been recorded plunging to minus 71 degrees Celsius or minus 96 degrees Fahrenheit. A cold that defies comprehension. The air is so frigid that boiling water thrown upwards does not fall. It explodes instantly into a cloud of ice crystals, turning to snow before it hits the ground. Cars are left running 24 hours a day, engines roaring constantly, because an engine turned off is an engine that may never start again, frozen solid in its own block. A stalled vehicle on the desolate highways outside the village is often a death sentence, a metal coffin in the snow. Even the simple act of breathing becomes labor, as the jagged, icy air threatens to freeze the moisture in your lungs with every inhale, turning your breath into shards of glass inside your chest. Eyelashes freeze together, beards turn to ice masks, and the world is painted in shades of white and gray, a monochrome landscape of absolute stillness. It is a place where humanity survives on the edge of extinction, huddled around fires, fighting a battle against a climate that wants them gone. On the southern coast of Hawaii's Big Island, the planet performs its most violent act of creation, a display of raw power that is both terrifying and sublime. The Kilauea volcano sends rivers of molten rock traveling kilometers from the summit to the sea, a flow of liquid fire that consumes everything in its path. When the magma, burning at over 1,000 degrees Celsius or 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit, collides with the cool Pacific Ocean, the water boils instantly, exploding into steam with the force of a bomb. It looks like a battle between elements, a mesmerizing display of steam and fire, a clash of titans that shakes the ground. But that white plume billowing into the sky is a deadly trick, a cloud of poison disguised as mist. Locals call it laze, a blend of lava and haze, a toxic cocktail that kills. This is not harmless water vapor. The chemical reaction creates a cloud of hydrochloric acid laced with microscopic shards of volcanic glass, a spray that cuts and burns. Standing downwind feels like inhaling broken needles, a pain that sears the lungs and blinds the eyes. The land itself is a lie here, unstable and treacherous. The lava builds new shelves of rock called benches that extend out over the water, looking solid and firm. But they rest on shifting sand and loose debris, fragile foundations that can collapse without warning. Acres of this newly formed earth can slide into the deep, taking anyone standing on the edge down into the boiling surf, swallowed by the ocean they just created. It is a place where the earth is being born before your eyes, but it is a birth attended by death. From the boiling surf of the Pacific, the danger shifts to the cold. Dark currents off the western Cape of South Africa, where the ocean hunts. Between Dyer Island and Geyser Rock lies a narrow channel known simply as Shark Alley, a name that sends shivers down the spine. The water here is murky and thick with the scent of the nearby seal colony, a dinner bell ringing in the deep. This is not a place for swimming. It is a hunting ground, a feeding zone for the apex predators of the sea. Beneath the waves prowls the densest population of great white sharks on the planet, giants of the deep waiting for their chance. They attack from the shadows below, hitting their prey with such vertical velocity that they breach the surface completely, launching their 2-ton bodies into the air like missiles. A prehistoric killing machine becoming airborne, jaws snapping shut with bone-crushing force. To enter these waters is to surrender your status at the top of the food chain, to admit that here you are nothing but soft meat. In the open ocean, a human is slow, blind, and hopelessly vulnerable. There are no walls here, no safety glass to separate the observer from the wild, no barrier between you and the teeth. In Shark Alley, the ocean does not simply surround you. It watches you, it stalks you, it hunts you. Every shadow could be a predator, every ripple a warning, every moment a potential finale. Leaving the water behind, the landscape strips itself of all moisture, becoming a barren wasteland where life struggles to exist. This is the floor of the world, Badwater Basin in Death Valley, sitting 86 meters or 282 feet below sea level, the lowest point in North America. The valley acts as a natural convection oven, trapping solar heat between steep mountain walls with nowhere to escape, creating a furnace that cooks everything inside. The air here does not just feel hot. It feels heavy, oppressive, a physical weight that presses down on your chest. It vibrates with a visible distortion, blurring the horizon in a perpetual heat haze, making the world look like a melting painting. This furnace holds the record for the highest air temperature ever measured on Earth at 56.7 degrees Celsius or 134 degrees Fahrenheit. A heat that can kill in hours. The soil can bake at temperatures nearly double that of the air, hot enough to fry an egg on the ground. Walking here without water is a physiological gamble, a roll of the dice with your life. The heat evaporates sweat so instantly that the skin remains dry, tricking the body into thinking it is cooling down while internal organs slowly begin to cook from the inside out. Dehydration strikes fast and hard, confusion sets in, and the sun beats down without mercy. In this silent, blindingly white expanse, the sun is not a source of life. It is a weight that presses down until there is nothing left to give, a relentless enemy that never sleeps. Sometimes the greatest threats do not roar. They whisper, lingering in the dust of a city that was once full of life, now silent and still. Pripyat is a clock that stopped in 1986, a frozen moment in time where nature has won the battle for the streets. Roots crack through the asphalt, trees sprout in the middle of living rooms, and vines climb the walls of abandoned schools. It looks like a post-apocalyptic movie set, a stage for a story that never ended. But the danger here is not staged. It is atomic, invisible, and deadly. It has no color, no smell, no taste. Radiation is a ghost that haunts the rusted Ferris wheel and the Polysov discarded gas masks, an unseen killer that waits in the shadows. You can stand in a beautiful meadow surrounded by wild flowers, breathing in the sweet scent of bloom, while invisible particles collide with your cells, rewriting your DNA, causing damage that will manifest years later. It is a slow invasion, a silent war fought within the body. The elephant's foot remains in the dark basement of Reactor 4, a massive corium so lethal that a few minutes of exposure is fatal. A blob of melted core that glows with deadly energy. Even decades later, the soil remains a patchwork of safety and hazard, a minefield of radiation. One step into the wrong patch of moss can spike a sensor into a frantic scream, signaling danger that you cannot see. It is a landscape that demands respect, not for what you can see, but for the heavy legacy of a moment when the invisible world broke free. A reminder that some mistakes echo forever. Leaving the silent ruins of the atomic age, the landscape shifts to something even more primal, a place where the earth bleeds heat and color. This is Verir in Iceland, at the foot of Namafjall, where the earth has stripped away its green skin to reveal the burning machinery beneath. It looks less like Iceland and more like the surface of Mars, a red and yellow alien world. The ground is stained in violent shades of ochre and sulfur yellow, a palette of fire and brimstone. There are no trees here, no birds, only the hiss of steam vents in the wet, rhythmic gurgle of boiling mud pots, sounds that mimic the breathing of a giant. The danger here lies in the crust itself, thin and brittle. In places, the solid ground is merely a shell floating over a reservoir of superheated sludge, a trap waiting to snap. Step off the marked path and the earth can simply give way, plunging a boot into clay hot enough to burn through flesh and bone in seconds. Or the air hangs heavy with the stench of sulfur, a constant reminder that this is a planet still in the process of being forged, a place where the boundaries between solid and liquid are blurred. It is a landscape of raw creation, beautiful and deadly, where the earth shows its true face, unmasked and fierce. From the static heat of the north, energy explodes in the South Pacific, where the ocean rises up to strike. Tehapu is not a normal wave. It is a freak of hydrodynamics, a monster of the deep. The ocean does not just roll here. It folds over itself, creating a slab of water so thick and heavy it looks like liquid glass, a wall of doom. Surfers call it the heaviest wave in the world, a title earned by fear and respect. But the true horror lies beneath the beauty, hidden just below the surface. This massive wall of water breaks over a razor-sharp coral reef that sits inches below the waterline, a bed of knives waiting to cut. Falling here is not like falling into water. It is like being thrown against a cheese grater by a freight train, slammed onto the sharp stone floor with the force of tons of water. One mistake in the ocean drives you straight into the reef, shredding skin and bone, leaving you broken and bleeding in the impact zone. It is a place where paradise has teeth, where the beauty of the wave hides a brutal reality, where the line between riding the dream and meeting death is razor thin. Rising from the rugged spine of the Karakoram Range. This is the savage mountain K2, a peak that commands fear and respect. Everest might be the highest point on Earth, but K2 is the deadliest obsession, a mountain that kills with indifference. It stands as a near-perfect pyramid of black rock and ice, isolated and geometrically terrifying, a shape so pure it seems unnatural. Reaching base camp here is not a simple trek. It is an expedition into a world of stone and silence, a journey to the edge of the world. Unlike its Himalayan neighbor, there are no easy routes up these flanks. Every face is steep, every step is technical, every move a calculation of risk. The weather here is notoriously violent, capable of trapping climbers in hurricane-force winds for days, burying them in snow and ice. For a long time, the statistic was grim. For every 4 climbers who reached the summit, 1 died trying, a ratio that speaks of the mountain's ruthlessness. Even standing at the foot of this giant, you can hear the mountain shedding its skin. Rocks the size of cars tumbling down the couloirs with the sound of thunder, avalanches roaring like dragons. It does not welcome visitors. It tolerates them briefly before reminding them that in the thin air above 28,000 feet, humans are merely temporary guests, fragile and fleeting. It is a place where ambition meets mortality, where the desire to conquer is met with the reality of survival. The beaches here blush with a rare shade of pink, creating a soft romantic horizon that feels almost surreal, a dream washed ashore. But this paradise belongs to a creature that time forgot, a living fossil that rules the islands. The Komodo dragon is the heaviest lizard on Earth, a 3-meter-long armored tank that has ruled these islands for millions of years, a king of reptiles. Do not let their lethargic movements fool you. These reptiles can sprint faster than the average human in short bursts, exploding into motion with terrifying speed. But their true power lies in their jaw, a weapon evolved for killing. For decades, it was believed their mouths were simply filled with septic bacteria, but we now know they possess complex venom glands, biological syringes loaded with toxins. A single bite delivers a cocktail of chemicals that prevents blood clotting and induces shock, lowering blood pressure until the victim collapses. Once the venom enters the bloodstream, the dragon will follow the scent of the wound for miles, tracking you with prehistoric patience, waiting with a stillness that is unnerving for the inevitable end. It is a hunter that plays the long game, a predator that knows time is on its side. Leaving the pink sands behind, you realize that beauty here is a mask for danger, a lure for the unwary. Heading south, we enter the most violent stretch of water on the planet, a graveyard of ships and a test of nerve. The Drake Passage is the gateway to the frozen continent, a chaotic convergence zone where the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans collide without any landmass to break the wind. A meeting of giants. Currents circulate the globe unimpeded, building into walls of gray water that can tower 15 meters or 50 feet above the deck, mountains of liquid crashing down. Sailors call it the Drake Shake, a name that captures the violence of the ride. It feels like being trapped inside a colossal washing machine, tossed and turned by forces beyond control. Even modern icebreakers pitch and roll at sickening angles, groaning under the stress of the sea. Here, gravity seems to lose its consistency as the horizon disappears behind a constant curtain of white foam, a world of gray and white and noise. Crossing this stretch is the price of admission to Antarctica, a brutal test of stomach and nerve against the unbridled fury of the Southern Ocean, a gauntlet that separates the brave from the foolish. It is a place where the ocean shows its true power, untamed and wild, indifferent to human presence. High in the Central American cloud forests, nature hides a jewel that burns, a lake of acid disguised as emerald. The main crater of Poa's volcano holds a lake known as Laguna Caliente, a body of water that glows with a hypnotic iridescent emerald hue, looking calm enough to swim in, inviting and serene. But this is a chemical mirage, a trick of the light. The vivid color comes from an extreme saturation of minerals in water that is often more corrosive than battery acid, a liquid that eats through metal and flesh. It is one of the most acidic natural bodies of water on Earth, a pool of destruction. And it is temperamental, unpredictable, and volatile. Poas is prone to sudden phreatic eruptions, explosions of steam and gas that come without warning. In mere seconds, that peaceful green mirror can shatter, blasting jets of superheated steam, rock, and acidic mud hundreds of feet into the air, turning the tranquil scene into a war zone. It is a breathtaking sight that invites you to look closer, to lean in until it decides to erupt, reminding you that beauty can be a trap, that the most stunning views often hide the deadliest secrets. Kagari, or Fraser Island, stretches along the Queensland coast like a golden barrier. The world's largest sand island, a place where ancient rainforests defy logic by growing straight out of the dunes. On the eastern beach, the rusting hull of the S. Mahano sits half buried in the white silica, a skeleton of a ship claimed by the sand, serving as a permanent warning that this island keeps what it catches. The ocean here is forbidden territory, a domain of danger. Strong rip currents churn the water, pulling swimmers out to sea with invisible hands, while the surf is a highway for tiger sharks and great whites, predators patrolling the shallows. But the danger follows you onto dry land, into the scrub and the dunes. This is the domain of the dingo, wild dogs that are not pets, but apex predators with knocker of humans. They move silently through the brush, watching, stalking, often targeting visitors who stray too far from safety, testing the boundaries of the pack. In this World Heritage Site, the line between a perfect holiday and a fight for survival is as shifting as the sands beneath your feet, a boundary that can vanish in an instant. From the dry sands of Australia, we plunge into the waterlogged heart of South America, a world of water and teeth. The Pantanal is the world's largest tropical wetland, a sprawling, majestic sponge that absorbs the seasonal floods, a labyrinth of life. During the wet season, it becomes a liquid maze where the boundaries off the land simply dissolve, where up is down and solid ground is a memory. It looks serene, a vast mirror reflecting the sky, a picture of peace. But the water hides a density of life that is unnerving, a concentration of predators found nowhere else. Jaguars here have adapted to the aquatic world, swimming silently like otters to drag prey from the banks, kings of the flood. Yet the true scale of the danger is only revealed when the sun sets and darkness falls. Shine a flashlight across the black water, and the surface ignites with hundreds of glowing orange dots staring back at you, eyes reflecting the light. These are the eyes of yakarikimans, hundreds of them, maybe thousands, packed together in the shallows. In the darkness, you realize you are never truly alone here. You are surrounded by a glittering constellation of predators, all waiting for a single ripple, a single mistake, a single splash. It is a place where the water watches you, where every shadow has eyes, and where survival depends on staying dry. This is the mouth of the sea, the Ilulissat Isefjord in Greenland, a factory of frozen giants. The Cermak-Kujalek Glacier moves here at a speed of 40 meters, or 130 feet per day, pushing massive sculptures of ancient ice out into the Disco Bay, a conveyor belt of icebergs. It is arguably the most beautiful parking lot on Earth, filled with towering blocks of blue and white. But silence here is a prelude to violence, a calm before the crash. When these glaciers calve, when they break apart, it sounds like artillery fire cracking the sky, a boom that shakes the ground. Blocks of ice the size of skyscrapers detach and crash into the dark water with catastrophic force. The impact displaces millions of tons of water in an instant, sending mini tsunamis racing toward the shore, waves that can capsize boats and sweep away hikers. A boat too close to the spectacle can be flipped like a toy, crushed by the falling ice or rolled by the surge. A hiker on the coastline can be swept away by a sudden surging wall of freezing water, dragged into the depths. It is a place of majestic destruction, where the earth sheds its coat of ice with a roar, reminding us that even the frozen world is alive and dangerous. The world sheds its coat of ice and burns in the Dashti Lut of Iran, the hottest place on Earth. These towering structures rising from the sand look like the ruins of a forgotten empire. Giant ridges of sand and salt carved by centuries of relentless wind. They are the Kalates, monuments to erosion, sculpted by the breath of the desert. But no king ever ruled here. This is the abiotic zone, a place where life cannot exist. The surface temperature has been recorded at a staggering 70.7 degrees Celsius or 159 degrees Fahrenheit. Heat so intense it sterilizes the ground, leaving a place where even bacteria struggle to survive. Walking among these silent monoliths at sunset feels like exploring a ghost town on Mars, a landscape of red and golden silence. There is no shade, no water, no relief. There is only the sound of the wind sharpening the stones, a whistle in the void. It is a place of absolute extremes, where the sun is a hammer and the earth is an anvil, forging a landscape of death and beauty. A narrow strait holds the title for the strongest tidal current on the planet, a river within the sea that tears itself apart. Every 6 hours, 400 million cubic meters of seawater are forced through a gap just 150 meters wide, a bottleneck of epic proportions. The pressure is too immense for the water to flow in a straight line. Instead, it churns and twists, creating massive vortexes on the surface. Cavities 10 meters or 33 feet wide open up like drains in the ocean floor, whirlpools that can swallow a boat whole. Watching it from the bridge is mesmerizing, like seeing the sea turn into a galaxy of whirlpools, a dance of destruction. But on the water, physics takes over, and the dance becomes a trap. To a small boat caught in the wrong current, the engine becomes irrelevant, powerless against the flow. The water grabs the hull with the grip of a giant hand, spinning it into the center of a cold, blue centrifuge, pulling it down into the deep. It is the Saltstraumen in Norway, a place where the ocean shows its muscular power. A reminder that water is stronger than wood and steel. Piercing east into the Bay of Bengal, the danger shifts from the forces of nature to the fierce will of humanity, a rejection of the modern world. North Sentinel Island rises from the azure water like an emerald jewel rimmed by pristine coral reefs, a paradise untouched by time. But the thick canopy hides a boundary that modern civilization is forbidden to cross, a line drawn in blood. This is the home of the Sentinelese, a tribe that has lived in nearly total isolation for perhaps 60,000 years, the last uncontacted people of the Paleolithic era, living as our ancestors did. The threat here is not geological. It is a sharp, deliberate rejection of the outside world, a defense of their sovereignty. Attempts to approach the beach have been met with a hail of arrows and spears, warnings fired with deadly accuracy. Helicopters checking for damage after the 2004 tsunami were driven back by warriors firing at the rotors, defending their home from the sky. Fishermen who drifted too close in their sleep never returned, lost to the island's guardians. To protect both the tribe from modern disease and outsiders from certain death, the Indian government enforces a strict 3-mile exclusion zone, a buffer of safety. It is a rare patch of the planet where the map is blank, guarded by a society that has chosen to remain a mystery, a people who say no to the world. Before reaching the roof of the world, every climber must first pass through its mouth, a gate of ice and death. The Khumbu Icefall is the most dangerous mile on Mount Everest, a river of ice falling in slow motion over a steep cliff, moving up to 1 meter or 3 feet every single day. The movement tears the glacier apart, opening massive crevasses that can swallow a team whole, cracks in the earth that appear without warning. To cross these blue scars, Sherpas lash together aluminum ladders, creating fragile bridges over the abyss, shaky paths over the void. Crossing them requires balancing on metal rungs while wearing steel crampons, staring down into a darkness that seems to have no bottom, a drop that goes on forever. But the true terror lies above, looming and silent. Towering blocks of office known as seracs, some the size of apartment buildings, hang precariously over the route, suspended by nothing but friction and ice. They do not give warnings. They simply collapse, crashing down without sound until it is too late. It is a place where you are always looking up, always waiting for the sky to fall. A gauntlet of ice that claims lives every season. From the freezing heights of Everest, we drop into the muddy heat of Australia's Northern Territory, where a road becomes a buffet for monsters. This is Cahill's Crossing, a simple concrete road disappearing into the East Alligator River, looking innocent and mundane. But at high tide, this submerged path becomes the most dangerous intersection on Earth, a crossing of death. It is not just a road, it is a feeding ground. As the water pushes in, massive saltwater crocodiles congregate there in numbers seen nowhere else, gathering to feast on swarming barramundi. They line the causeway shoulder to shoulder, waiting, their eyes just above the water, their tails thrashing below. Drivers must navigate their vehicles through the murky, rushing water, knowing that a stalled engine leaves them stranded in the middle of a feeding frenzy, surrounded by prehistoric jaws. It is a daily gamble where the only thing separating a driver from a monster is a thin sheet of metal, a barrier that a croc could crush with a single bite. It is a place where the food chain is on display, where humans are just another species trying to cross the river, hoping not to become dinner. Ascending to the high Arctic, civilization clings to the edge of the map, a lonely outpost in the ice. This archipelago sits halfway between mainland Norway and the North Pole, a place called Longyearbyen. It appears to be a normal town with colorful houses and wide streets, but it operates under a strict code of survival, a set of rules written in blood. A massive white shape blends into the drift, visible only by the piercing black obsidian of its eyes. It is the boundary where a safety ends, the line between the town and the wild. Here, humans are the ones living in cages, retreating behind heavy doors and steel walls while the predators roam free. By law, anyone leaving the town limits must carry a high-powered rifle, a necessity for life. This is the domain of the polar bear, the masters off this ice, giants of the north. They do not fear human scent. They see us as prey. To a hungry male on the tundra, a human is simply slow-moving protein, a meal walking on two legs. In this endless white silence, you are constantly being watched by eyes that see you not as a threat, but as food. It is a place where the hunter becomes the hunted, where the landscape is beautiful but lethal, and where survival depends on vigilance. The name sounds like a storybook ending, a place of magic and wonder. Fairy Meadows, carved into the unstable flank of Nanga Parbat, known as the Killer Mountain, lies a 16-kilometer track of loose gravel, a road to heaven built on the edge of hell. There is no asphalt here, no guardrails, no safety features. The path is barely wide enough for a single jeep to pass, a ribbon of dirt hanging over the abyss. Local drivers navigate this ribbon of death with a terrifying casualness, their tires often rolling just inches from a vertical drop that plunges thousands of feet straight into the valley floor, a fall that would be instant death. The sound of pebbles crumbling under the weight of the vehicle is the only soundtrack, a crunching noise that signals instability. One wrong turn of the wheel, one moment of hesitation, one slip of the tire, and gravity takes over instantly, pulling the vehicle down into the deep. It is widely considered the most dangerous road on the planet, a place where the view is breathtaking, but looking down is a fatal mistake. It is a road that tests your nerve, your trust in the driver, and your willingness to flirt with death for the sake of beauty. Deep in the red labyrinth of Zion National Park, a fin of sandstone rises like a blade against the blue sky, a spine of rock reaching for the heavens. This is Angel's Landing, a name given by an early explorer who looked up at the isolated summit and declared that only an angel could land on it. So steep and sheer is the climb. Today, thousands of humans try to prove him wrong, flocking to the challenge. The final stretch of the hike is a psychological gauntlet, a test of courage and balance. The trail narrows to a spine of rock, barely the width of a sidewalk, a narrow ridge with drops on both sides. On either side, the cliffs drop nearly 450 meters, or 1,500 feet, straight down to the canyon floor, a dizzying height that makes the stomach turn. There are no rails, no barriers, no safety net. There's only a single heavy chain bolted into the stone to hold onto, a cold metal lifeline. Gripping the chain with sweating palms, you are forced to confront the void with every step, to look down into the abyss and keep moving. It is not just a hike. It is a balancing act where a moment of vertigo, a slip of the foot, a gust of wind, can turn a spectacular view into a final one. It is a place where the thrill of the climb is matched only by the fear of the fall. In the far north of Queensland, the oldest rainforest on Earth spills directly onto the white sands of the Coral Sea. a meeting of ancient green and turquoise blue. It is a UNESCO heritage site of breathtaking green, but Cape Tribulation lives up to its name, a place of trials and troubles. This is where the forest and Theotian shake hands to trap you, a junction of dangers. In the shade of prehistoric ferns grows the Jimpy Jimpy, a plant that looks innocent with broad heart-shaped leaves. But a single brush against it delivers a neurotoxin so potent it feels like being burned with hot acid and electrocuted at the same time. A pain so severe it can drive men mad. The pain can last for months, a lingering torment from a single touch. Walking the forest floor is the cassowary, a modern dinosaur with a helmet of bone and a dagger-like claw capable of fatal injury with a single kick. A bird that can gut a human. If you flee to the water for safety, the trap snaps shut. The surf is the domain of saltwater crocodiles and box jellyfish, transparent phantoms with venom that can stop a heart in minutes. It is a place where every direction holds a threat, where nature is armed and ready, and where survival requires respect for every leaf and every wave. From the complex biological traps of the Australian bush, the threat simplifies into a singular slithering nightmare off the coast of São Paulo. Rising from the Atlantic, Ilha de Queimada Grande looks like a pristine emerald, uninhabited, lush, inviting. But the Brazilian Navy forbids anyone from setting foot on these shores, posting warnings of death. This is the exclusive kingdom of the golden lancehead viper, a snake found nowhere else on Earth. Trapped by rising sea levels thousands of years ago. These vipers evolved in isolation, adapting to a world without ground prey. They learned to snatch birds from the sky to secure a meal before it flies away, developing venom terrifyingly potent, designed to melt flesh and shut down nervous systems almost instantly. But it is the sheer density that freezes the soul. Estimates suggest that in the dense canopy, there can be as many as 5 snakes for every square meter, a carpet of vipers. You are never more than 3 feet away from a lethal strike, surrounded by coils and fangs. It is a writhing landscape where the ground itself seems to move, where looking up offers no safety, for they are coiled in the branches above, watching, waiting. It is Snake Island, a place where nature has concentrated its venom into one small spot, a paradise for snakes and a hell for humans. Leaving the suffocating density of the jungle, the world opens up into a vast red emptiness, a silence that stretches for millions of square miles. This is the Northern Territory of Australia, a land of extremes. It is not just a place. It is a feeling of isolation. The highway runs like a scar across the landscape, a thin strip of asphalt cutting through an ocean of dust. Here the enemy is not a predator or a poison. It is distance. The horizon seems to retreat with every kilometer, a mirage that you can never reach. Temperatures soar above 40 degrees Celsius or 104 degrees Fahrenheit, baking the moisture out of the air, drying out the land. A mechanical breakdown here is not an inconvenience. It is a countdown. Without water, the sun becomes an executioner and the silence becomes a tomb. In the center of this void rises Uluru, a massive sandstone monolith that glows like a dying coal at sunset, a sacred beacon in the desert. To the Anangu people, it is the sacred beginning of the Dreamtime, a spiritual center. To the lone traveler, it stands as a monument to an ancient, indifferent scale, a reminder of how small we are. Standing here surrounded by nothing but red earth and the sound of the wind, the realization is absolute. This land is beautiful in its desolation, but it is a beauty that does not care if you survive. A beauty that is indifferent to your presence. These landscapes stand as ancient monuments to the Earth's raw power, testaments to a world that is wild and untamed. They are not puzzles to be solved or enemies to be conquered, but reminders of our place in the grand scheme of things. Witness the beauty, heed the silence, and always walk with respect, for these places demand it. The greatest journey is understanding our small place within it, realizing that we are guests in a house built by forces far greater than ourselves. From the burning pits of hell to the frozen poles, from the deepest oceans to the highest peaks, the earth speaks in a language of fire and ice, of rock and water. Listen closely, for it tells a story of survival, of danger, of beauty that kills. Let these places remain wild. Let them remain dangerous, for in their danger lies their truth. Do not seek to tame them, but to witness them, to stand in their presence and feel the awe that comes from facing the unknown. For in these dangerously beautiful locations, we find the essence of our planet, a reminder that we are alive, that we are fragile, and that the world is magnificent. The adventure never ends, the mysteries never fade, and the earth always has one more surprise, one more warning, one more miracle waiting to be discovered. Let us go forth with open eyes and humble hearts, ready to embrace the magic and the madness of our incredible, dangerous, and beautiful world.